Yes, we're now recording.
Fantastic. So, as I said, what we're going to look at is how to add standards to iLearner. The message is, you can see that I'm adding these at a center admin level, but for you, if you add them at domain owner level, then they will filter down and they'll be available in all your different admin sites, because I know there's a couple of different sites that you've got. Whether or not you use them, don't worry too much, but do certainly add them at domain, because then they'll be available throughout.
Perfect.
So the first button we press is the standards button on the left.
Yep.
And then we want to, if you can see here, edit the standards database.
Yeah.
The point at which we edit standards database, we put the qualification code just here in the add, where it's, sorry, by the side of where it says add new. So that will be the number that it's normally, I'm not going to use a real number just in case we've got it elsewhere in the system, but it's the 6-7 digits. So
and there's sometimes like a letter or a number at the end. Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
From there, it's the qualification title. So you can see there, I might as well use what I've already got. The level 3 certificate in principles of warehousing and storage. We then add the level again there and click this green lollipop. Once you've clicked the green lollipop, we've started to create the qualification. So we've done the very top level qualification title. What you'll notice is when you press the green lollipop, the 3 that we put in the box there reverts to a 0. So we do have to overtype 0, make it 3 again, and then hit the blue lollipop, at which point that's now saved. So we have got the starting post for our qualification.
Perfect.
Okay.
So from there, hit the arrow to the left of the qualification title. And at the top, you start to get the details of the qualification. So which awarding body is it? And you should have a list to select from there of hopefully everybody. Which sector is it in?
It's the ones that we need to do are NCFE cash. So it'll either be as under as NC. Yeah, there's NCFE. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't see that then. So yeah, so you've got that there. If it's health, whatever, your sector's 1, and then 1.2, 3, 4, or 5, whatever it might be. Assessment guidance and purpose document, you don't need to worry about when you're adding something just to use as an e-portfolio for yourself. But then we do have to change elements there to outcomes, because all of our qualifications these days are learning outcomes. So update the detail there and then click on the blue lollipop, and that will all save. The way that I normally tackle it then is to start to I add all my unit titles next, rather than doing one unit and going back doing another. So I tend to make sure I've got everything in a Word document to start me off.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple that I prepared earlier. So my first unit title, and the unit title just goes in the box there, and then I click the green lollipop and I update. As I said, I'd put all the unit titles in first if I was doing it. So that's my second unit. And I am just copying and pasting from one document to the other. And again, the green lollipop again to update. If you make a mistake at this stage and you add a unit that's incorrect or a unit too many, if you just click that out button there, that'll delete the unit. So at this stage, I have got my units ready to go. I now want to put the detail inside the units. So again, hitting the black arrow, similar to what I did before. I now want to add my learning outcomes. While I'm here, I'd want to add any assessment guidance for the unit and also the RQF details. So if I start with the RQF details, unit owner will be for yours that you're going to do NCFE. The RQF reference number is the T number that you can see on my screen there. If the owner has a reference number, I know some awarding bodies then put their own unit number onto things. So if you've got their own unit number, by all means add that into that owner reference number. We then add the level. I've got level 2. Number of credits, which again I've got 2. Number of guided learning hours, which I have to go back and check, which is 15. And if you want to put a unit start date or expiry date, you can do. But to be honest, that I don't think that's particularly important. To find the unit start date, I think would be quite tricky.
Yeah.
And I don't think as awarding organisations, we put expiry dates on our units anymore. So it will all save quite perfectly without that detail. And what I did notice, I've just forgotten there, is again, my subject area. So if it was a health with number 1, and then 1.5 if it's a children's qualification. So I have now added my RQF details. The next thing I want to do now is to start to add my learning outcomes. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste. Once I'm happy that the learning outcome is as it should be, click the green lollipop, onto learning outcome 2. Same again, outcome 3. And you just continue until you've got to the end.
Yeah.
You can see there I've made a mistake in number 3, in that I've left the 3 dot there. So I'm just going to delete that, press the blue lollipop, and that just saves my corrections. And I'll do the same with learning outcome 4. So I've got 5 learning outcomes, so I can just do a quick check there. I've got 5 on my screen. I then need to dig in a little bit further and start to put the assessment criteria in place. So I've hit the arrow again towards the left of the learning outcome. I then get the option of a number of different categories, which I change to assessment criteria. Then again, green lollipop, update. So at this point, we then start to copy our assessment criteria into these slightly bigger boxes. Once you're happy with what you've got there, you would click change item or the green lollipop. And what I would suggest is that when you start to add learning outcomes, if you add the 0 when you're adding the first assessment criteria, if it gets to the point of having more than 10, if we just do 1 on its own as a single figure, the system gets a little bit confused and starts to throw everything out.
What was that button called again that you just hit there?
Add 0.
Add 0.
Yeah. So what I've started to do is, regardless of whether it's got 5, 10, 15 learning outcomes, I add the 0 anyway, partly for consistency, but partly because it does really mess it up, and it does look really strange when you've got the 10 and the 1 and everything gets a little bit topsy-turvy.
Perfect.
The other thing to bear in mind, you'll notice that that's just changed to question marks. I had 2 bullet points, and that's because we need to use HTML coding to get this to look right. So rather than expecting, for example, the space to be here or the bullet point to be there, we have to put the relevant piece of HTML code into the system to tell it to do a bullet point or to leave a break. So I've got my little cheat sheet here with all my HTML codes. And for around bullet points, I need this code. So I add that there. And I also add that piece of code just there. So that'll give me a bullet point for each of those. But also I want a line break as well. So I'm going to add my BR just there and also just there. And that'll mean then that that assessment criteria looks exactly the way that it looks just there on the Word document. If we don't add all those bits of code, it just all flows into one when we get the standards. And for an assessor reading it, or if you start to try and download your gap analysis, it just looks a mess. It looks terrible. I'll share that HTML coding sheet that I've got with you after. I'm not going to say everything's there, but everything I've needed to use so far in adding standards is there. Because I've just updated that since I saved it, I'm going to update again. And you can see there now that's changed to a bullet. So with any luck, when we display that standard later even, we will have a bullet point. So I just carry on now adding my assessment criteria. Add it, give it a quick check. If I'm happy, hit the green lollipop, which is the save. iLearner will automatically put full stops in to this when it saves and when it shows in the specification or the gap analysis. So you don't need to panic about full stops. If you put a full stop in, it won't put two in. So just really to let you know. Once I've added all of my assessment criteria, I go back to my elements for unit 1, just at the top. You'll notice when this page pops up, you've not got your backwards and forwards buttons at the top. The idea is that we do all the navigation from this top section just here. And as a quick check for myself, as I've put each of the learning outcomes, or I've put each of the learning outcomes on, I can see I've got 3 items there. So under learning outcome 1, I've got 3 assessment criteria. So a quick back check, I can see quite simply that have I got enough or not. But what I really want to do is start to add learning outcome 2. So again, it's quite simply copying and pasting, hitting the arrow button, selecting assessment criteria again, green lollipop to update, pasting it in. Whenever you paste anything in here, it will expect to see American spellings. So like I were recognizing there, it's not spelt wrong. It's just wants us to put a Z in it. I'm then going to add the 0 as I did last time. And I will then learning outcome 2. Save. Learning outcome 3. As long as you add the 0 in the top one, it will automatically put a 0 in the rest. If you get to learning outcome 5 and you realize you've not hit the add 0 button, you'll notice that on every assessment criteria, you've got the opportunity to add 0. So if I'd got to number 5, I'd need to hit that add 0 5 times, and then learning outcome 6 would be kind of corrected, if you like.
Perfect. So
what I'm going to do is I'll add learning outcome number 3, just so that I can show you how it looks if we don't add the HTML coding. So similar again, I went to my elements for unit 1. I'm looking for learning outcome number 3. Hit the arrow on the left, select assessment criteria, hit the update button. I'm then faced with the box where I can copy the assessment criteria or even paste the assessment criteria. 3.1, green lollipop. I'm going to add the 0. Then I'm going to go for number 2. Same again. And then I will add number 3. Add item again with the green lollipop. And at this point now, if I go back to elements for unit 1, I can see at a glance, I've done 3 out of 5 elements, or 3 out of 5 learning outcomes, still got a couple to do, and I can check back my assessment criteria, make sure I've got what I need in there. The next thing I might do is hit the units button. And you'll notice unit 1 there has started to populate. So not only have I got the title, which I put in, it's dragged through the RQF number. It's also telling me I've got 5, and it's still saying elements there, but that is learning outcomes.
Yeah.
And 9 assessment criteria. So again, if you wanted to do that quick check in my mind, yeah, I can see I've got all the relevant things that I need there because I can see 9 outcomes on my screen. So I know that there's another 2 learning outcomes, but what I'll do is I'll just go to another unit just so we go through that unit start piece again where we have the RQF details. So we're going to go on to the next unit, unit 2. Hit the arrow at the left of the unit title. Back to RQF details. Learning unit owner again, whoever that might be. The RQF reference number. I have a funny feeling that I've mixed them 2 units up. It's not a very good demonstration, is it? So for what we're doing now, it is just a demonstration of how to do it, so we won't worry too much. RQF reference number, again, if they have their own reference number, feel free to put that in there. Then you want the level, the sector, subsector, credit value, 3, and GLH, 20. And as we said before, the start and end dates, they're not particularly important unless for some reason you want them there. Click the blue button, that's updated. We then want to start to add our learning outcomes. So that's learning outcome 1. Bearing in mind, if I make a mistake and I want to delete it, just hit that out button and that would remove. Just go for learning outcome 2. And save. And then after I've added all the learning outcomes, I start to add my assessment criteria. Hit the arrow again to the left of the learning outcome. Select the type of criteria it is, so it's going to be assessment criteria. And then quite simply, green lollipop, and start to add my assessment criteria. I know I'm not going particularly in order here, but just another example of if we don't put the bullet points in, how that'll end up looking. Notice on this one, I've forgotten to add my 0 at number 1, so I've ended up with the add 0 twice. So I can go back now and I can add 0, but I will have to add it again for number 2, but then it automates it back for number 3.
Number 3.
So then I can go back to my elements for unit 2 again and just check what I've done. I haven't put anything in for learning outcome 2, but I've got 2 assessment criteria. So I know I've not finished it. Yeah, so I can quite clearly see that. And then back to my units, And again, it's telling me my elements, my assessment criteria. I can see that I've put the RQF details in there. And the very final thing I do to check once I've put a qualification on, and I tend to leave this to the end, is just what it looks like. So I would hit this display and the qualification number. If you then hit the arrows by the side of the unit title, it starts to tell you or show you what you've put on. And this is how it's going to look to somebody. So this is where we started to put the bullet points and the line breaks in. And what you'll notice is I've not put a line break after social interaction. So what I'll do is I will put another line break there shortly and just show you how it looks. But look at this one where I didn't put any of the coding in.
Yeah.
And that's why that HTML coding is so important. I think there's one that will look even worse if we go to, just there, the next unit, the A and the B, and these are quite short assessment criteria, but if they're any longer and they should have any spacing, they're absolutely terrible to read. So it would just really to demonstrate the importance of that, because when somebody tells you, I don't think you always appreciate quite how bad it looks when you don't do it. So what I'll do is I'll hop back into my first unit, and I think it was learning outcome 3. So if you ever wanted to edit, you can do by just following the same process until you get to the assessment criteria, and then you can start to edit any of the boxes. I'll just delete my 2 sets of question marks and back to my HTML codes. So I want brown bullet points. Bear in mind, if you ever want something to be bold, you have to switch bold on and switch bold off when you're doing this. And there's the code for both there. It's just, you might think when you look at it, why are they actually telling us on and off? And it's like, if you just switch it on, the rest of the text after it's switched on is all bold.
So if it was the name Karen, it would be bold on, Karen, bold off.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Threw me for a while, that, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong, and that's why I mention it, because I was switching bold on and thinking, well, what's going on? I only wanted that word. But yeah, it's a little bit more involved perhaps than I thought. So what I've done there is I've added my bullet point and I've added my line break with my BR code, and I'm just going to update that. And I think as well, if we look back, I had a problem in learning outcome 1 where I didn't put enough line breaks. So again, just following it through, and you can see there I needed a line break after social interaction as well. So update that.
And then you're back up to display to check that that all worked for you.
Yes, and what you'll notice, because I've just updated that, is my code in there for the bullet points just vanished. So I will need to go back and put that coding back in. So it was that one. Save again. So now back to display, and with any luck, it's going to look a little bit better. Yep, so there you can see the bullet points, learning outcome 1.1 and 3.2, and they look a lot more readable.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that.